The Sun Devils 2025 recruiting class is starting to finalize itself. What holes have been filled? What do we know? And what's next?
You are Locked On Sun Devils, your daily podcast on the Arizona State Sun Devils. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. My name is Richie Bradshaw, and I will be your guide for everything Arizona State Sun Devils. Shout out to my everydayers who are here every day, and thanks for making us your first listen of the day. Wherever you get those podcasts, hit like, subscribe, turn on notifications so you get an update whenever we post new content, and stay in touch with the show by following me on Twitter at RichieBrads36 and the podcast at LO_Sun Devils. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. That's $150 with any winning $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back in. I apologize for the radio silence. There has been some work stuff going on in the background. We are back. We are talking some Sun Devils recruiting. It was a big weekend for ASU. They had, I want to say 17 kids that visited this past weekend. There was a couple of kids who did end up announcing their commitment. There is a lot of smoke for guys who are going to be potentially committing very soon. It was a very, very big, very important weekend though for ASU recruiting. We'll go ahead and start with how the class looks though. After this weekend, ASU currently has 17 commits for next year. 17. And it's June. There is still 6 months until National Signing Day that ASU can continue to add players. Now, should we expect it to be doubled? Absolutely not. There's no way that ASU is bringing on a significant amount of more guys to this recruiting class, which is where, it feels like you're starting to kind of finalize what it's going to look like. But ASU already has 17 commits. They have the number 14 recruiting class in the nation, the number 1 recruiting class in the Big 12. They've got a couple really high-profile guys, 4-star receiver Adrian Wilson, 4-star tight end AJ Aya, and a couple of other really quality 3-stars as well, like Corey Butler, Benjamin Alafeo, and Cameron Dyer, someone who I'm really interested to talk about during the show today, but we will touch on him in a little bit. This is a class that is really starting to come together for itself, though, and as it is finalizing, I think that there's a few big takeaways here. The first and the very obvious one is this is a wide receiver loaded recruiting class. ASU, as of right now, has 5 recruits that are coming in to play wide receiver. And to play wide receiver, I want to be very specific because there are 4 guys who are listed as a receiver, and Cameron Dyer, the one I just mentioned, who committed yesterday, is transitioning from quarterback to receiver. So there are 5 receivers that are coming to Arizona State. Keep in mind, this is also coming off the heels of Rashad Samples leaving Arizona State as their receivers coach to take on a new role at Oregon. Having Hines Ward replace him in the middle of spring ball, that's pretty impressive for anybody to be able to come out and recruit that position basically on the fly. And he's done it. And they brought in some very talented kids. There's a lot of guys that they're really excited about moving forward to really blossom into those stars. There's obviously the Adrian Wilson of the group. Wilson, the highest rated recruit on the team. He is a top 300 recruit in the nation. Top 200 recruit in the nation, excuse me. He is a top 30 wide receiver. This is one of the best gets of the Kenny Dillingham era so far. And it's really funny, total sidebar, the top recruits that ASU has landed has been quarterback Jaden Rashada, running back Jason Brown, tight end, oh my goodness, Jaden Fortier, wide receiver Adrian Wilson, and now another tight end, AJ Aya. Are you noticing a trend? Because if you haven't picked up on it, the offensive-minded head coach is bringing in some very talented offensive weapons to this team. Wilson is just going to be another big piece of the puzzle here. But beyond Wilson, there's a lot of receivers in this recruiting class that are coming up. Corey Butler is someone who committed over the weekend as well from Centennial High School in California. You've got Cameron Dyer, who I mentioned, is the quarterback transitioning to wide receiver from La Cueva High School in Albuquerque, 6'4", 202 pounds. I want to say he scored like over 50 touchdowns last year at La Cueva for a state championship for the team. He's going to be moving to receiver for what he has described as the best move for himself to further his career. That's great. And I love the body size. Anyone who knows what I like in my wide receiver build knows that if you're 6'3" or taller, you are very much someone that I fancy compared to the smaller guys. I love big receivers. Cameron Dyer, if he's able to take that step forward, amazing news. For what it's worth, I can't think of a better guy to help transition him from quarterback to receiver than Hines Ward, who also made that transition from quarterback to receiver, goes on to be one of the best receivers of his time frame in the NFL, potentially a Hall of Famer, probably should be a Hall of Famer. Great opportunity there for him. You've got Mikey Scott, who's coming in. Is he Joystick? I can't remember. Someone in this recruiting class, his nickname is Joystick. And I want to say it was Mikey Scott because even though it says Mikey Scott on 24/7 where I'm looking, everyone was calling him Michael Scott. No relation to the very, very, very famous and hilarious character on The Office. But I want to say his nickname was Joystick. There was someone in this recruiting class that's nickname was Joystick. I am 98% positive it was Mikey Scott. But they're adding guys, they're adding talent. And this is coming off a recruiting class that only brought in one guy in Zachariah Sample. So ASU has really gotten it done with some of the veterans on the team. You look at this team last year, they had Troy O'Mary, Melcon Stovall, and Xavier Guillory. Goodness, totally spaced on that. They brought in all those guys to really kind of build the foundation of the receiver room, combined with the return of Elijah Badger. Now going into this year, they're going to be relying on those veterans again. Troy O'Mary, Melcon Stovall. You've got Jordan Tyson, who is returning coming off of injury. He looks like a potential stud, if not a star. You've got Jake Smith returning after having to sit out last year for the NCAA's 2-time eligibility transfer rule. This is going to be another veteran room. But after 2024, it's going to need a youth movement. You will potentially be losing all of those guys. You're going to need to get younger. And this is the draft class that ASU has apparently decided to go all in on for getting that youth movement at the wide receiver position. But wide receiver is not the only place that ASU is really hammering. To no surprise, Coach Carrington is once again absolutely killing it recruiting the defensive backs for ASU. There's 3 more DBs that are coming in for this team. You've got Joseph Smith, a corner from Legacy, the School of Sports Sciences in Spring, Texas. You've got DeJohn Hinton from Hamilton, and you've got Xavier Scarron from Texas City in Texas City, Texas. They are attacking the DB spot, 2 corners, 1 safety. ASU is no stranger to this. They had Rylan Dillard Allen at one point as well, but he decided to decommit from the program and take a look at some other opportunities for him. ASU is recruiting very well at the defensive back position under Brian Carrington. This year is no different. Another thing that's no different, ASU's killing it with recruiting Texas. The hashtag Texas to Tempe moniker that ASU is embodying under the Kenny Dillingham administration, no different. Adrian Wilson, Xavier Scarron, Joseph Smith, the guys we just mentioned, all came from there. And then offensive tackle Deshaun Bryant is also coming from Texas. They are trying to build three different not philosophies, but kind of like monikers for the team is activate the Valley, keep the kids home, Texas to Tempe, and Polynesian Pipeline. ASU was hitting on those. And the Texas to Tempe has really been evident pretty much the start of Kenny getting here. But the 2024 class really showed that off. They brought in a ton of kids from Texas, and next year's recruiting cycle has 4 more kids. They're hitting on that. They are identifying what they're good at, what they're comfortable with. They're putting an emphasis on it, and they're making it work. Last thing I want to point out, this is an offensive heavy recruiting cycle. Looking at this recruiting cycle, of the 17 kids that are committed to come play at Arizona State, 5 of them play defense. That's it. Everybody else is on the offensive side of the football. Receivers, quarterback, offensive line. There are 4 defensive backs. No, 3. Oh my goodness. I'm totally doing this to myself. 4 defensive backs and 1 linebacker. That's it. How is the transition going to be from this team that has really identified itself as a stout defensive team under Brian Ward and is building this confidence of, yeah, we're gonna outslug you. That's the way that ASU has seemed to build their identity defensively and through this team. We're probably going to see that again this year. Well, at some point, the offense needs to catch up. This might be the recruiting class that gets the offense back on track with the defense. There is a lot of talent they're bringing in. And it's not just a receiver. They've got a new quarterback coming in Michael Tollefson. And Tollefson, who committed to the program a whole year ago at this point, could potentially be the future of the quarterback position if Sam Levitt or anybody else on the roster does not work out. You potentially have a new quarterback. You've got a new number 1 receiver. You've got a new number 1 tight end. There's offensive linemen that are coming in. This is potentially the class that really forms the nucleus of this offense. You've got the pieces in place. For next year, you should have Jaden Fortier, and you should have Jason Brown, and you should have a couple of other younger guys as well, like a Caleb Black or a Corbin Hendricks or a Kyson Brown that are going to play big roles for the offense. But next year, you could have the biggest cornerstones of the team at quarterback, at wide receiver, potentially tight end if Fortier is not tight end 1, but anyone who knows anything about this podcast knows I'm very big on Jaden Fortier. This is a fun-looking class right now, but it is offensive heavy. Even with that in mind, though, this class is still filling a lot of big roles for the Sun Devils, and we're going to take a look at the holes that they have filled in just a moment. This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Want to talk to you guys about our friends over at LinkedIn. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find qualified professionals that are right for the role. That's why you need to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn helps you hire the right professionals that you can't find anywhere else, even those who aren't actively searching for a new job, but may be open to the perfect role. In a given month, over 70% of LinkedIn users don't visit other job leading sites. Look, if you're not on LinkedIn, you're looking in the wrong place. On LinkedIn, 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. Hire professionals like a professional on LinkedIn. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire, which is why they're constantly finding ways to make the process faster and easier. And even launched a feature that helps write job descriptions, making the process easier and quicker than before. 2.5 million businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Wherever you get those podcasts, like, subscribe, turn on notifications so you get an update whenever we post new content. I appreciate you guys for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. And a shout out to my everydayers who are here every day. Let's talk about some holes that got filled for the Sun Devils. To me, there's two specific holes here that got filled. The first is wide receiver. And just to emphasize on that again, ASU has been relying on a very veteran-laden group last year and this year. There are just a couple of guys that are freshmen, redshirt freshmen. Most of this receiver room, man, it's guys that either don't have eligibility or are looking to jump as soon as they can to the next level. Stovall, O'Mary, I know for a fact this is their last year. Jake Smith, I think he's got 2 years. He might have just gotten a third year because the NCAA decided to give anybody who was ruled ineligible last year an extra year of eligibility. So I think Jake Smith has 3 years. I know for sure he has at least 2 more years of eligibility. Jordan Tyson, super talented kid. He should have, I think, 3 years of eligibility. But if he blows up, he's going pro. I'll tell you that right now. This dude is built for the next level. If he gets to that point, he's going. Who else? Xavier Guillory, another guy. I don't think he has any more eligibility after this year. He may have 1 more year. That is 5 receivers that could be gone. So that's quite big shoes to fill. And of course, they'll attack the transfer portal. They do every year. But you still need to be able to build your team through your recruiting classes. And ASU is taking that to a whole other level this offseason. They are looking to make their 2025 room a young, talented, and homegrown team, homegrown unit. This is one of the biggest overhauls I've seen ASU make at a single position in the last several years. They are all in. And they should be when you consider you got a brand new wide receivers coach in Hines Ward. You need to start being able to create the image of this receiver room in his image. Big step in the right direction. I also have quarterback here as a whole filled. Now, this also comes with the stipulation that Sam Leavitt or whoever else is not the answer. But even if Sam Leavitt is the answer quarterback, even if Sam Leavitt ends up being really, really good, there's no one behind him. There's 3 quarterbacks on this team right now that are on scholarship, and then you have Navi Bruzon as well. But of the 3 on scholarship, 2 of them, Trenton Bourget and Jeff Sims, are out of eligibility after this year. Leavitt will return. Navi Bruzon will return. That's it. ASU is going to have to find a way to keep the quarterback position not even like elite. You need competition. So once again, they will probably use the transfer portal. But at least you're staying young with Tollefson coming in. You could also, I know that Cameron Dyer is making the transition to wide receiver, but that doesn't mean he can't be like an emergency option for you. It doesn't mean he can't be listed on the roster as a quarterback in a pinch situation or anything like that. Having Dyer and Tollefson both coming in, to me, that's really good news for ASU for the quarterback position. And again, I understand that Dyer is going to be making the transition to wide receiver. especially if that ends up being what they feel is going to be the best decision for his future moving forward. But he still has talent and experience at the quarterback position. There's a handful of standouts that I want to highlight here from this recruiting class. Guys that I've already talked about quite a bit, so I don't want to continue to say the same stuff over and over again. But Adrian Wilson, clearly the prize gem of the class. He's going to have a lot of weight put on his shoulders when he arrives to campus. This is basically his receiver room. When he gets to campus next year, unless someone breaks out or returns, like if Jordan Tyson breaks out and returns, if Caleb Black breaks out and returns, then yeah, it's their receiver room. But right now, if we are going into it with the unknown factor, and we don't know who's back next year, and we don't know who gets significant playing time next year, or this year, excuse me, then it's probably Adrian Wilson's receivers room. It's his spot to lose wide receiver one spot. There's going to be a lot of expectations at that point, fair or unfair. Adrian Wilson, I won't say will be put under a microscope, but there's going to be a lot of people, myself included, that are going to be really excited for him and have pretty decent expectations placed on him as well. Michael Tollefson, the biggest thing with him is if Sam Leavitt does not work out, Tollefson could be the future at the position. He was a 4-star quarterback at one point. The recruiting process, he's trended down a little bit. I don't really know why. If and when he blows up again this year, I imagine he's going to get back to that 4-star status that he was when ASU was able to recruit him a year ago. Cameron Dyer, really fun. I'm looking forward to see how he ends up getting used by the Sun Devils. A couple other guys that stand out to me. Obviously, Mikey Scott as the small little spark plug at 5'8", 155 pounds. He's maybe he's Trendon Holiday. I don't know. Just getting real obscure with that. If there's any listeners of the Sun Devils who are aware of who Trendon Holiday is, let me know. And spoiler alert, he's not a Sun Devil. It's just one of those, like, you sit around in a group of friends and you're like naming random NFL players. Someone says Trendon Holiday, you go, wow, that's a good one. Maybe that's Mikey Scott, is that kind of spark plug that you just put the ball in his hands and let him do something with it. Last guy I want to mention, I don't know if I can really narrow it down to one guy. I'd probably go Xavier Scarron, the safety from Texas City. I know that this was someone that ASU was really excited to get. He's going to fit into the Brian Carrington defense. He's going to have an opportunity to really develop behind the scenes because of the depth that ASU has at safety. They're excited about him. I don't know how long it takes for him to make an impact when he gets here in 2025, but I will be keeping my eye out on him. But as we transition to the last part of the podcast, we got to ask ourselves what's left to do for ASU in this recruiting class. And I got a couple of targets that I'm taking a look at as well that I would like to see end up as Sun Devils by the end of the cycle. We're going to hop into that in just a moment. This is the Locked On Sun Devils podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Guys, I want to talk to you about our friends over at FanDuel right now. It's winner take all in the NBA and NHL, and FanDuel's giving you a shot to bring home a big win of your own. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 bet. It's $150 to bet on spreads, money lines, player props, and more. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make every playoff shot count. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. And again, wherever you're getting your podcast, hit like, subscribe, turn on notifications so you get an update whenever we post new content. I appreciate you all for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. And a shout out to my everydayers who are here every day. Wrapping up this edition of the podcast, we'll start with the biggest question and what's left? What's left to do for this Sun Devils recruiting class? It's not done. It's not complete. There's still room to continue adding guys. we got to get some more on defense. Like I said, 17 kids are coming in through this recruiting class right now. 5 of them play defense. That's got to change. It doesn't need to be 50-50, especially because ASU is in the 2 years that Kenny Dillingham has been here, they've done a really good job addressing the defense through the transfer portal. That's not going to be any different, but you still want to have those young guys as well. And there's several guys that ASU is linked to through the recruiting cycle that I would love to see them get a shot to bring in. One of the guys who I will mention in just a moment, they just need to add some more bodies, and not in the secondary. They've got that figured out. I trust everything that Brian Carrington has done for this unit. I will continue to trust that he's going to put his best step forward, bring in the best available talent for ASU in the secondary. We got to get the front 7 caught up too. There's plenty of good talent on this team right now, but again, a lot of it could be gone next year. Clayton Smith, who I am expecting to break out. If he does, he's gone. God, who else is on our defensive line? Prince Dorbaugh. There we go. Prince Dorbaugh out of eligibility this year. Elijah O'Neal out of eligibility this year. The interior of the defensive line, there's a couple of guys who could be looking to go pro. There's veterans there that don't have much more eligibility. Linebacker, really weird spot with Zyrus Viaseu, Keyshawn Elliott, Tate Romney, Jordan Crook, Caleb McCullough. How does that end up looking next year? You need to start bringing in younger guys as well. You need to start bringing them in through the recruiting cycles. Got to address the front 7 in the remainder of this cycle. I don't know how many more players you get. You have 17. I don't know if I don't know how the scholarships look. You got to get some more kids though. At worst, you just attack it through the transfer portal, which is fine. ASU's done a good job using the transfer portal to their advantage. Me personally, I would just like you to add some more guys to the front 7. Wrapping it up now, I've got 3 players that I want to see as Sun Devils by the end of this recruiting cycle. These are 3 guys that I think are pretty decently realistic as well. I don't see this as like a shoot for the moon kind of thing. Like there's definitely some guys that are shoot for the moon. Like I know, oh God, who's the tight end? I can't remember the tight end that I'm trying to think of, but we'll get there. We'll start with the 3 guys that I feel are realistic possibilities for ASU to land. We'll start with the tight end that I'm not racking my brain to remember, and that's Vander Plug. Plug is from Fullerton City in California at Troy High School, 6'6", 223 pounds. Consensus 4-star tight end and a top 15 tight end in the class. You have AJ Aya, already a 4-star tight end. You've got Jaden Fortier, already a 4-star tight end. Keep making it a strength. Keep building up the tight end position. Get it to a point where tight end is maybe the best unit on the team. Jason Mons is recruiting out of his mind at the tight end spot. There's never enough bodies on a college football team at any position. I don't care if it's kicker or quarterback or running back or wherever. I want all the talent that I can get. Tight end is no different. And ASU has not had elite tight end play the last 10 plus years. Like there's been talented players like, oh my God, not Cody Coyle. Chris Coyle, a handful of years ago. Obviously, Jalen Conyers was really good. There's been guys, but ASU has not had a dominant tight end room in a long time. They might be building that with Jason Mons. This is a room that has a lot of excitement built around it for 2025 and potentially could really turn into a big time strength if they do end up landing a guy like Vander Plug, or the other tight end whose name is completely escaping me right now as I am trying to remember who it is. But we'll figure that out before the end of the podcast. I'll remember it as I'm scrolling and trying to figure it out. Next guy I want to bring up though is Jared Martin, 3-star / 4-star edge rusher from El Centro, California at Central High School. Martin, edge rusher, long kid, 6'3", 210, lots of room to continue to grow. He has been linked to ASU for a little while. According to 24/7, it's between ASU, Cal, TCU. I think ASU's got a really, really good chance to land him. They need to be able to land someone in that front seven, like I already alluded to. They would be very, very happy to land a guy like Jared Martin to plug into their front seven and hopefully develop behind the scenes, but you're also looking at an edge rushing room that could be very different. Like I said, the top 3 guys between Prince Dorba, Clayton Smith, Elijah O'Neal could all be gone, as well as some other guys that I didn't highlight right now. This is a room that could look very, very different next year. They need to be able to get some guys out there, and I think that Jared Martin would be a really good fit for them. It's a talent thing. For what it's worth, he's also a Cali kid, and ASU has done a really good job recruiting California in this cycle. 7 of their kids are coming from California. Why not make it 8? Last guy I want to mention is Tavian McNair. McNair, 3-star receiver, someone who's been linked to ASU for quite a while now, someone who is crystal balled to ASU. It feels like it's going to happen. Wide receiver from Centennial out in Corona, 6'2", 180 pounds, consensus 3-star. Just make it happen. And to me, I understand that like Tavian McNair isn't a 5-star player. I understand that Tavian McNair isn't the biggest name in the receiver room when all is said and done. That's Adrian Wilson. There's clearly something they like about Tavian McNair, and there's clearly something that he likes about the program. All the sides seem to want it. Let's do it. Let's just get Tavian McNair to Arizona State, call it good, call the receiver position good at that point, because, man, that is a remade room, and McNair would just be the exclamation point on top of it all. There's several other guys I'd be interested in as well. Mark Ionacre, someone I've mentioned before. Gio Richardson, someone I think is going to end up at Arizona State. There's several players that have the warm status on 24/7, guys that I think would be really awesome to add to the team. But those are the 3 that I would be most interested in. Baron Naon is the tight end I was trying to think of. Baron Naon. Now that we've got that figured out, that's what I know about this recruiting class. That's the holes they've filled. That's the standouts. That's the guys that I'm looking forward to having on the team next year, as well as what's left to do. What do you guys think of the recruiting class? Let me know in the comments. Hit me up on Twitter at Richie Bradshaw36, the podcast at LO_Sun Devils, wherever you're getting your shows. Hit like, subscribe, turn on notifications so you get an update when we post new content. Shout out to my everydayers who are here every day, and thanks for making us your first listen of the day. Guys, I appreciate you for tuning in. Want to let you know, for the month of June and July, we will be taking a bit of a step back in kind of an off-season mode and going down to 3 podcasts a week. But don't worry, I'll still keep you guys in the loop whenever something breaking happens. And I've also got some wonderful, exciting stuff planned. So even 3 days a week, now's never been a better time to subscribe. So I'll see you next time. And until then, you keep it locked right here on Locked On Sun Devils.